When the name Lorraine Whittaker comes up, many people instantly think of tragedy, isolation, and pain. She's a woman from a lineage so isolated that for years she was ignored by society, just a morbid curiosity from the mountains of West Virginia. She is the daughter of Rhea and Elizabeth Whittaker, who were first cousins. Lorraine's story begins with a choice that many people find hard to grasp, but was actually common in a community where geographic and social isolation shaped the lives of its residents. In a small, remote town called OD, with few if any other options for marriage, close relatives marrying each other became a seemingly necessary custom. However, to outsiders, Lorraine and her family were seen as a genetic oddity, an isolated family whose lineage was marked by difficulties that nobody truly tried to understand. For many, Lorraine became a symbol of the tragic consequences of inbreeding, a woman whose name is whispered and who carries the unseen weight of judgment. Her life story isn't just about the physical and mental challenges caused by closed genetics. It's also the story of a woman who was marginalized and treated like a spectacle, a misunderstood and distant figure, rejected by a society that never tried to understand her real self. But what many people don't see, and what few have bothered to discover, is that behind the image of tragedy and suffering, Lorraine Whittaker is a unique woman. She's a woman who, despite all the challenges life threw at her, had a strong heart that many never saw. What people don't know is that deep down, Lorraine was more than the stigma placed on her. She was a quiet but incredibly important person for her family and community. Her story is more complex, more human, and more beautifully resilient than most could ever see. Be sure to check if you're subscribed to the channel. 3 times a week, I share real-life stories of consanguinity, isolated families, and the genetic outcomes that need to be understood. Hit the bell to get notifications for more amazing, eye-opening stories you won't want to miss. Click subscribe now. Even today, Lorraine Whittaker lives under the heavy weight of social stigma because of her background. As the daughter of first cousins Rhea and Elizabeth Whittaker, she was and still is viewed by society as a genetic oddity. The fact that her parents were cousins who married and created a lineage marked by inbreeding continues to be a source of prejudice and disgust for many. In the present day, Lorraine not only carries the burden of being the child of a practice many consider wrong or unnatural, but she's also constantly judged for something she didn't choose, something that was forced on her by her parents' decisions. While some may view consanguinity as a purely genetic matter, for many, this origin is seen as a sin or a moral failing. Lorraine is still stigmatized by her genetic heritage. The world around her still sees her as a strange figure, and her family's story is often oversimplified to a mistake or a genetic anomaly, without any real attempt to understand the complexity of the situation. For many, Lorraine's mother and her marriage to her cousin are issues that cause revulsion, and the social prejudice surrounding her still dictates how she's treated. Even in a more informed era about genetics and health, Lorraine isn't seen with empathy, but with the weight of ignorance from a society that doesn't understand what happened but judges without hesitation. People continue to look at her with suspicion and often a certain distance, as if her origins make her less deserving of being treated as an equal. The stigma Lorraine faces today isn't just about her physical appearance or the genetic issues she carries. Her family's history, especially the fact that her parents were cousins, remains a source of social exclusion. Although she is now an adult woman, society has never fully accepted her. People who know her still treat her with doubt and distance, often without even trying to understand the real reasons she is the way she is. With her physical differences and communication challenges, Lorraine continues to be seen as a marginalized person, someone who doesn't fit into social norms. But what few people know is that she didn't choose her situation. She didn't choose to be the daughter of consanguineous parents. She didn't choose to have cognitive difficulties or physical problems. All Lorraine ever wanted was to be seen as a normal person. But society rejects her because of her genetic background, isolating her even more. For many, she's a curiosity, something to be watched and marginalized. At the same time, Lorraine still deals with a lack of support from doctors, educators, and even social workers. She didn't receive the proper treatment to handle the difficulties that recessive diseases caused in her body and mind. The social neglect of the Whittaker family in the past and even now is a reflection of the lack of resources and the isolation they lived with. There was no one to explain what was happening to her body and mind. And even over the years, support for her specific condition remains limited. Lorraine continues to suffer because the options to help her are scarce, and the medical community hasn't done enough to offer proper solutions. Today, Lorraine still finds herself a woman living in isolation. Unlike everyone else around her, the emotional loneliness she feels is deep. She still lives in a bubble of rejection, where she is constantly excluded or treated with distance. Even though she's an adult woman, she can't overcome the effects of the isolation that began in her childhood. The lack of social acceptance and people's contempt are the biggest emotional barriers Lorraine faces to this day. The world around Lorraine, unfortunately, still sees her as a curiosity and, in many cases, as someone who doesn't deserve to be understood. The stigma of consanguinity and the judgment of her origins continue to weigh on her, limiting her interactions and her ability to build meaningful relationships. The people around her, instead of treating her with humanity and compassion, see her only as a reflection of a genetic practice they don't fully understand. The social and emotional barriers are deep, and Lorraine finds herself once again fighting a stigma she didn't choose. Despite her years, Lorraine still faces huge emotional difficulties. The weight of her family history and the social prejudice she still carries makes her daily life even more challenging. She struggles internally against the feeling of being inadequate and undervalued. In her mind, the judgment of others acts as an emotional dam that stops her from living a full and complete life. The shame imposed by society is a silent gag that prevents her from expressing herself freely. Although she's a woman who lives with many difficulties, no one sees her for the person she truly is. Social judgment prevents her from showing her true humanity. She isn't just a woman with physical differences and cognitive difficulties. She is a person with deep feelings, with desires, and a story that should be told and understood, not judged. But behind the social stigma and the loneliness she still faces, there is a strong, resilient, and vibrant woman. Lorraine has a story that goes beyond judgment and social exclusion. What many don't realize is that she is much more than these visible difficulties. She is a woman of great inner strength with a rich and emotionally complex story that has been forgotten by society. Lorraine isn't just a woman marked by genetic problems or society's judgment. When you look at her life today, you see someone who, despite being marginalized, carries a silent wisdom and a dignity that has never truly been acknowledged. Her true self goes beyond her appearance or physical difficulties. She is a woman with a strong soul, a resilient heart, who despite judgments and exclusion, continues to fight for her humanity and to live with an undefeated spirit. One of Lorraine's most unknown qualities is her ability to love and dedicate herself to others. Instead of being seen as a woman marked by genetic tragedy, Lorraine has actually been a caregiver and a mother who has always devoted herself to her family. Despite the judgments and marginalization from society, she has always been faithful to her own, always there for her children and siblings, caring for them with admirable patience, often without the recognition she deserved. Lorraine has been a woman of immense kindness who, despite her personal challenges, never failed to show her family unconditional love. Even in her loneliness and isolated state, Lorraine has been a pillar of support for her loved ones. She not only embraced her responsibility as a mother but also showed immeasurable dedication to her siblings and relatives, always ready to take care of them even when she herself was set aside by others. What society doesn't understand is that Lorraine's strength isn't in her appearance or her communication difficulties, but in the depth of her love and her ability to care for others. The way she handles her life's challenges with a warm heart is an example of resilience. Even when she's ignored and treated with prejudice, she continues to care for those she loves. This side of her, the ability to give love even when she doesn't receive it, is one of her greatest qualities. Lorraine's true greatness isn't in her physical differences or the genetic errors caused by inbreeding, but in the willpower she demonstrates every single day. She lives in a society that doesn't understand her and rejects her based on deep-seated prejudice. But she still doesn't give up. Instead of being defeated by pain or loneliness, Lorraine continues to fight for her dignity and her humanity. Her inner strength is what keeps her standing, facing physical and emotional difficulties, as well as society's lack of understanding about her condition. Today, Lorraine doesn't live in silence, but she still faces the loneliness of being seen only for her appearance and the prejudice many have against her. The rejection from society isn't easy to overcome, but Lorraine continues to resist, finding the strength to live and maintain her identity. Despite all the adversities, she is a decent woman, a woman who isn't defined by the limitations society has imposed on her, but by her resilience. Throughout her life, Lorraine has become an introspective woman, someone who has embraced her loneliness in a way few can understand. The loneliness she experienced didn't break her but made her a deeper and more thoughtful person. She began to realize that society could judge her for what she was, but that didn't define her essence. Lorraine, even while living isolated in many ways, found a way to understand herself and accept her difficulties. The inner wisdom she has developed over time is a reflection of her daily struggle to accept and understand her journey. Loneliness, which would often be seen as a hardship, became an opportunity for Lorraine to grow emotionally and find peace. She didn't need society's acceptance to be happy or fulfilled. Her strength is in overcoming adversities alone and finding within herself what truly matters. Even with all the rejection, contempt, and isolation, Lorraine continues to stand firm and not let outside opinions define who she truly is. Lorraine's real legacy isn't in society's judgment or the genetic differences she carries. Lorraine's legacy is in her ability to get up every day to care for her family with unconditional love and to be a woman of great strength and wisdom. It's a story of resistance from a woman who, even in the face of a life marked by stigma, doesn't give up. The world sees her in one way, but Lorraine Whittaker is much more than that. She is the definition of resilience and love. She is someone who has lived a life full of hardship but never lost the ability to love, to care, and to fight. She is not a genetic curiosity or a tragedy, but a woman who, despite all the difficulties, leaves a mark of courage and humanity. Currently, Lorraine Whittaker and her family, especially with the growing exposure on social media, continue to live a life where public judgment is still a part of their daily reality. Social media, which is a reflection of modern society, has become a place where personal stories gain attention but are often seen from a shallow perspective. As part of the Whittaker family, Lorraine has been exposed to cruel and critical opinions that are most of the time based only on physical appearances and prejudice. But in the midst of the judgment, there is always a layer of humanity that many fail to see. While many continue to look with contempt and doubt, there are those who choose to act differently, with empathy and compassion. The criticism and destructive comments on social media don't define Lorraine's worth, but are a reflection of society's lack of understanding about genetic issues and social isolation. However, the Whittakers' story isn't limited to criticism and superficial judgments. After the family gained visibility, Lorraine's story touched the hearts of many good and supportive people who saw a chance to genuinely help. These people realized that the Whittakers weren't a joke or a curiosity, but a family with real needs who deserved help and understanding. With this, support efforts began to appear. Financial donations, material aid, and support to try to improve the family's living conditions. These acts of kindness began to ease some of the family's immediate difficulties. Money donations allowed Lorraine and her family members to improve their housing, buy food, and even receive basic clothing and products. This support was vital to ensure the family's essential needs were met. However, while material support was significant, the true help needed for the Whittaker family goes beyond the financial. Despite the good intentions of many, the medical and psychological help that Lorraine and her family truly needed remains an unsolved challenge. Financial support was essential to improve immediate living conditions, but the impact of cognitive and physical difficulties caused by extreme inbreeding can't be resolved with donations alone. Lorraine, as well as other Whittaker family members, still needs expert treatment that isn't widely available. Geographic isolation and lack of access to specialized doctors remain major hurdles. In addition, the absence of psychological support is also a critical factor. The social stigma and emotional loneliness that Lorraine has experienced throughout her life haven't been solved with specific actions. She still faces the emotional difficulties of being seen as a curiosity by society, and this requires ongoing psychological support. The specialized psychological treatment that she and her family need to deal with the impact of their emotional conditions remains a vital, unmet need. Lorraine Whittaker's story isn't unique in the sense that many isolated and marginalized people face similar difficulties. Her situation reveals how modern society often fails to provide complete support to those who need it most. Help for Lorraine, while meaningful from some parts of the community, is still limited. The lack of understanding of genetic consanguinity and social isolation prevents help from extending to the most complex areas of medical, psychological, and educational care. The real takeaway here is about what it means to truly help. It's not enough to give short-term financial donations or aid. What the Whittaker family really needs is continuous support from a structured network that goes beyond momentary gestures. A deep understanding of their needs must be a priority, and solidarity must turn into concrete actions aimed at transforming Lorraine's life and her family's long-term well-being. The Whittaker's story, especially Lorraine's, is a reminder that solidarity must be more than just one-time acts. It takes a real commitment to the well-being of those who, like Lorraine, live on the fringes of society with few resources and even less effective support. The Whittaker's story challenges us to rethink how we treat the most vulnerable. By recognizing the unseen difficulties, humanizing people, and acting continuously and meaningfully, we can ensure that everyone has a chance to overcome adversities and live a decent life. True solidarity is what is given without expecting anything in return, with understanding and a commitment to building a more just and inclusive society. Today, you were invited to learn a story not only of difficulties and suffering but also of resilience, love, and humanity. Lorraine Whittaker is a woman who, despite everything life has thrown at her, has continued to fight, survive, and, above all, love unconditionally. Her story is marked by genetic differences that came from choices made in the past in a society defined by isolation and prejudice. As the daughter of Rhea and Elizabeth Whittaker, Lorraine grew up in a closed world where marriages between relatives were common. Her life, marked by loneliness and social isolation, has at many times been dismissed by society. Because of this, her true essence and human value were forgotten, reduced to a genetic curiosity. But today, we have the chance to change that. Lorraine's story can no longer be a story of marginalization. She deserves to be recognized not as someone who lives in the shadow of her family, but as a woman of courage, love, and compassion. The social judgment of Lorraine is, and always has been, shallow. Many people only see her by her appearance and the physical differences caused by inbreeding, but they don't see the true strength she has inside her. Lorraine is not a genetic tragedy, nor should she be seen as a worthless woman. She is a mother, a sister, a daughter with deep feelings and a story that isn't just about the mistakes of the past. She is more than the stigmas that society has imposed on her. As a society, we have a huge responsibility to see others with empathy and understanding. Lorraine has always been treated as a curiosity, but the truth is that she is a woman of great dignity, strength, and wisdom. Today, you have the power to help change the narrative about her. By leaving loving comments, you can become the light she has always needed to escape the shadow of judgment. You can be the reason Lorraine feels seen and valued as the incredible woman she truly is. Imagine if all of us who know a story as important as Lorraine's did something to help. It's easy to see someone and think that solidarity only exists when we are physically close, but that's not true. In the world we live in, virtual support can also be extremely powerful. By leaving kind and positive comments, you will show Lorraine that she is no longer alone. She might finally feel that she isn't a curiosity, but a truly loved and understood woman. Every word you write can be the emotional turning point she needs to find peace with her story. Lorraine, you are not invisible. Your strength is what inspires us all. This is the kind of message she needs to read. A simple positive comment can change Lorraine's day and help heal the emotional wounds she carries. Instead of seeing her story through the eyes of judgment, let's all choose to see her humanity. She isn't just a victim of genetics. She is a woman with a heart, a soul, and a rich and unique story. It is very easy to fall into the trap of looking at Lorraine as an isolated figure and labeling her negatively. But the truth is that by understanding the complexity of her life, we realize that the greatest gift we can give her is the recognition of her true essence. And that's why right now you have a chance to be a light in Lorraine's life. Together, let's make her story one worthy of empathy and compassion. Let's break down the barriers of judgment and support those who need it most. Lorraine is a woman who deserves to be loved, respected, and valued. Her story isn't a source of shame, but an example of resilience, unconditional love, and a fight for her family. By supporting her, you help rescue the woman who has always been behind the stigma and who has been forgotten for so long. Now, I invite you to be the change we want to see in Lorraine's life. Leave a supportive comment, share her story with others, and help spread kindness. Here are some ready-made phrases for you to leave in the comments and help Lorraine feel more seen. Lorraine, you are an amazing woman and you deserve all the love and respect. Your story inspires us, Lorraine. May your strength be recognized by everyone. Lorraine, you are more than the stigmas you have faced. You are a true warrior. I am grateful to know your story, Lorraine. Your courage teaches us all. In addition to leaving your comments, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. The more people who know about Lorraine's true story, the more she will be saved from invisibility. Let's make the world see the amazing woman she is, not as a stigma, but as someone who deserves respect and understanding. Her story deserves to be rewritten, and together we can be responsible for this change. The story of Lorraine Whittaker challenges us to look beyond labels and prejudice. Each of us can be the light that helps save someone from a life of judgment and rejection. Lorraine, despite the difficulties and challenges she has faced, deserves to be seen, understood, and supported for her true humanity. If you believe everyone deserves second chances and that love and compassion can change a life, then help rewrite Lorraine's story. Be the change. Be the light.